Logged in. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to our collegiate audition panel. I would ask that anyone here that maybe has some questions about college auditions or anything that comes up as we're talking, please feel free to enter something into the chat and we will try to address those as they come up. So I would love to just pass the baton along to my colleagues. We're going to divide this talk kind of into three parts. Talking about the non-playing preparation first. Would anybody like to dive in on that first?
I guess I don't mind.
Go for it.
Sure. Okay. So we were just talking about ways that you can get yourself ready for the big day. So it's a good idea to kind of have everything ready ahead of time. Think about what you want to wear, what clothes are comfortable for you, where you can move your shoulders easily. Think about what the weather's going to be like in terms of temperature. Maybe wear some layers in case it could be variable during the day and you can be comfortable. Be sure that you've got the right amount of food in your stomach, maybe not too much, but definitely enough that you're not going to be lightheaded. Think about getting enough sleep. Sometimes we take sleep for granted, but we generally do a little bit better when we feel not too tired. Sometimes being a little bit tired actually can help you worry less. Actually, there's some stuff about that in the inner game of music and tennis and so forth. But in general, you want to have a really good night's sleep because that helps you be the most flexible and so forth. And then think about how and when you will warm up. You might warm up a little bit at home if you have time before you go, because sometimes when you arrive at the place for the audition, it's a matter of warming up with a whole lot of other people around you. If it's too early in the morning, for whatever reason, you have to leave at the crack of dawn, you might find a way to do some mental practice or some silent practice or something like that to get yourself ready for the day. We talked about knowing the audition requirements. So be sure that you've reviewed everything that each school is going to require of you. Sometimes schools are very general, like my school tends to be a little bit general because we know you'll be auditioning several places. And we want you to really be your best and to present yourself the best way you can. And if we've imposed very specific things that might not be your best, and that also allows you to have a similar recital program that you're going to use for the various schools. And don't be afraid to reach out to the clarinet teacher if you have any questions. We're always happy to hear from applicants, and that way you can get some clarification if you're not sure what you should prepare. And be sure you have all your materials ready ahead of time. If sometimes at the audition you're asked to bring the list of pieces that you'll play or score, not every place will ask for that, but you want to be sure that that's all ready. Also, some schools have pre-screening, so this doesn't have to do with a live audition, but just, as you're getting ready for auditions in general, like in the weeks and months ahead of time, update your resume, consider a personal statement, get ready for those pre-screening recordings. And it's a good idea, actually, to have your teacher or your professor, if you're getting ready for grad school, or other people that you trust to proofread and review those materials to help you. It's okay to ask, if you're getting ready for grad school auditions, to have your college teacher help you prepare for the auditions because they know what people want to hear. And if you're ever intimidated about the idea of reaching out by email to talk to to let a professor know that you're interested in applying, don't be afraid of that, actually. It helps us to get to know you a little bit better. It helps us to help you prepare for the audition in terms of knowing what we're actually looking for. We might be able to invite you for a sample lesson or a visit day. So we actually really want to hear from prospective students. So know that it's a good thing when you're reaching out. Have a sense of what the audition day schedule will be like. You may have a music ed interview. You may have an oral skills assessment. You may have some other kind of interview. So get a sense in your head about when you'll be playing and when you'll be doing other things. This is good for professional musicians too, but arrive early, plan your schedule so that you have some leeway for something to go wrong, for getting lost, for, just pack it or add in some extra time to your travel schedule so that you feel comfortable and unstressed and you have plenty of time to find where you need to go. Sometimes campuses are a little complicated. You'll be able to find the warm-up rooms, find everything you need and check in and so forth. And when you think about what you're going to wear, you don't have to be overly fancy. It's not an evening gala concert, so you don't have to wear a tuxedo, but just wear something that represents you well, neat and clean. My grandma used to say, you don't have to be fancy, but you do have to be neat and clean. So wear something that's comfortable, but also professional, that allows you to feel your very best physically. So that's what I have to say.
You know, I had added a bullet down under audition day, but I realized it actually belongs in this section, um, which is that you should plan. Most auditions, when you take a college audition, they'll let you, at the very least, choose what piece you're going to start with. And so you should plan that ahead of time. What piece do you want to start with? But I would even go further because a lot of auditions, a lot of the ones I'm in, we just let them pretty much choose the entire order unless we really want to hear something that they haven't already done. So I would plan the entire order that you want to play in, thinking about especially if you have to change instruments. So like if you've got a bunch of pieces in B flat and some in A, you're going to want to put them together, so that you don't have to constantly switch. And I would put the piece that you're most comfortable starting with first, and then I wouldn't put your hardest piece first, because you're going to feel better as you go on and you're playing. So you could actually create a notebook with all the pieces in the exact order you want to play them in. Probably half the time you'll end up doing that and you'll be prepared for that. The other half, they'll divert you, but at least you'll know where to divert to and from. And if one of the judges says to you, oh, skip from this to this one and say, and it's a switch, clarinet switch, you could even say, do you want me to switch clarinets now? And they might actually reconsider at that point. And they'll say, no, finish your A stuff first, and then we'll get to the B flat, So, but if you have that planned, then it makes you more comfortable and you're likely to at least partially get them to agree to that.
The whole planning part is really important in preparing for any audition or any performance, whether it's the order of what you're doing or just how am I going to practice? What am I going to practice? What will be my goals daily? What will be my goals every week leading up to the audition? And that falls in the playing preparation. Like what are we going to do to prepare ourselves to play at our best for the audition? And we have a number of things here, and we'll probably a few of us will probably chime in on these. I'm going to go a little out of order from the list on the handout, because I think that the setting goals for yourself is probably one of the most important things you can do in your preparation, and making sure that those goals are actually attainable. Every day you should have a goal that you could reach. And it doesn't need to be, I need to play this Capriccio Espagnol up to tempo today when I just started learning it. You don't need to do that. So you don't need to put that kind of pressure on yourself. You need to have incremental goals over the course of time that you give yourself to prepare. So once you know what you're going to play that meets the requirements of the school, or if it's an orchestral audition or any kind of audition, once you know what you're going to be preparing, you need to break things down into manageable chunks, manageable goals, so that you know what you can work on every day to be able to meet your goal of playing your best when you get to your audition. I think the biggest challenge I see with many students is that they get impatient with themselves, and they want to be able to play everything up to tempo as soon as they start, and that can lead to learning mistakes, or on the other, like the far end of that is, you can end up hurting yourself if you're not careful. So we can go down the list now. I just wanted to make a point about setting goals for yourself. So the very first thing, and we were talking a little about this before we started the session, you got to practice performing. That is different from just practicing to learn the notes, the rhythms, the dynamics, whatever you're going to do musically. It is a different thing. Practicing performing is putting everything that you're doing into a performance. So your mindset is that you're in a performance space. You're in whatever hall, or if you're preparing for an audition, you're visualizing yourself being in a studio playing for someone. And it's also not letting yourself stop. We can't stop in a performance. We can stop in our practicing, when we're trying to fix things and we're assessing. But when we practice performing, we can't stop because it's a performance. So holding yourself to that fairly rigid requirement. It's like, I'm going to stand up. I will come back to that point in a minute. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to visualize myself in a performance space. I'm going to be wearing what I'm going to wear for the performance. If I'm using an iPad, I've got my pedal. I'm not going to stop to turn a page. I'm going to use my pedal. Every element of what would be in a performance, we practice in that practice session. It's incredibly important. Now, I mentioned standing up because a number of years ago, I was working on something to play with the band at ASU, and it wasn't very hard, but it was fast, and it had a lot of notes. And I had spent so much time practicing it sitting. And about a week before the performance, I said, "Oh, I should probably stand up and play it." And it felt awful. Like it was so uncomfortable. And it's because I had practiced it sitting, which is part of practicing. Like I practiced in the context of sitting. And so I kind of had to relearn it in the context of standing to be, to feel comfortable. And that was a really unsettling feeling the week before a performance, not feeling comfortable with my preparation. And since then, if I'm going to perform it standing, I practice it standing. If I'm going to perform it sitting, I practice it sitting from the very beginning stages. So if I get a brand new piece of music, fresh from the composer, and I'm going to perform it standing, I'm going to learn it from the very beginning standing, so I don't have to relearn anything later. And practicing performing can have so many, there are other things that you can do to elicit that feeling of a performance. If you've got some friends who are willing to listen to you, round them up, bring them in a room, play for them. If you're an undergrad and you have a studio class performance opportunity, absolutely use it. Try to practice performing as much as you can. Recording yourself can be incredibly helpful. It's shocking how just hitting that record button can elevate your all of those feelings of a performance. Another thing that a friend of mine has done is asked his students to live stream a practice performance on like Facebook Live or something like that. So there are lots of ways that you can practice performing, but you have to practice performing. If you don't, when you get in the performance context, the performance space, it's not going to feel as comfortable. And our goal in our practice is for everything to feel as comfortable as possible, so that when those inevitable feelings, a little bit of performance anxiety, a little bit of anxiousness, that's normal. We all get it. It's okay. For them to be the only things that we're having to deal with, because we've already accommodated all of the other stuff. We've become comfortable in our preparation. It's also important to remember that we're not listening for perfection. We're listening for you to convey some musical idea. That's the most important thing in what we do. We are being creative. We are expressing ourselves musically. So we want to hear what you have to say musically. And if, there are some little blips along the way, that's fine. That's normal. I've never heard a perfect performance. I don't expect to ever hear one. And you should know that whoever's listening to you is on your side. They want you to do well. No one wants you to not do well, ever. Plan your practice schedule and practice routine for each practice session. So mentioned that a little bit before with setting goals. It's critical. You have to set goals for yourself that are attainable. That's an important detail. They need to be attainable in order for you to feel confident and good about the work that you're doing, and also to have, stair steps along the way so that your progress is manageable and you see your progress. That's incredibly important for just maintaining a healthy mindset about your playing. Have a warm-up that focuses on your fundamentals every day. I cannot overemphasize this. One of the things that I listen for in auditions is the approach to the instrument. How well is the instrument being used? It's a machine. And we have certain skills that we need to be able to operate that machine, such as, finger dexterity, air control, embouchure stability, voicing control across the full range of the instrument, articulation control. All of these things we have to work on. And if we do it on a daily basis, I use this analogy all the time. It's like eating with a fork. When was the last time you missed your mouth? If you do it every day, you get really good at it and you get really accurate, but you need to do it regularly. Can't overemphasize that. And when we have a big audition coming up, it can be really tempting. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to do my scales today because I really need to work on this. Practice your scales. It will help, I promise. Take care of yourself. Do things outside of playing that keep you healthy physically and mentally. I am probably not the person to talk about that, but very actively trying to improve that myself. If you don't feel good, it's hard to play well. So you really need to take care of yourself and do the things that you enjoy. I believe we just had a session before this one talking about that. Be sure you have reads prepared. If you are traveling for an audition, know where you're going, know the climate, know the elevation. Being in Phoenix, people come out to audition in February and it's 72 degrees and sunny and very dry. Well, oddly not dry right now. It's been raining. But it's a radically different climate here than it is not too much further north. So if the climate is going to be very different, or if the elevation is going to be very different, you want to have some read options prepared so that you're not stuck using something that's very uncomfortable. For example, if you go to a higher elevation city such as Denver, if I go to Denver from here, we're at like 1,100 feet. Denver's at, a mile. That's over 5,000 feet. I will need to bring soft reads because things are going to feel much harder up there. Let's see. Don't forget to listen to recordings of your repertoire if possible. If recordings are available, it can be a useful tool to just internalize what you're doing. If you're playing Brahms, for example, you really need to know the piano part well so that whatever you do with the clarinet makes sense. Even if you're not playing with the piano, we can tell if you've got the piano part internalized because the things that you do will accommodate what the pianist is going to do. Having a good oral image of what you're going to play is critical for you to convey something meaningful and something that is truly yours. Also helps with, I think it helps with a little bit of the performance anxiety because you know what you're going to do. You can hear it before you actually start it. Okay, that's all for the playing preparation. So now we're going to go to, you've figured out what you have to do or what you want to do. You've prepared everything. You've set your goals. You have good reads. You're ready to go. You've practiced performing. You've recorded yourself umpteen million times. Now we're at the audition day. Who would like to talk about the audition day?
Well, I want to jump on just a couple things coming into it with learning the music and preparing for the audition. I always tell students, play something you know for the audition and something in your repertoire that's more familiar, rather something you're learning that, like, say it's the fall and you're learning a new piece for an audition, you're not going to be as secure as something that's in your repertoire. So really making sure that it is in your repertoire, something you've hopefully performed, but that you're very comfortable with. And kind of on the recording side of things, several of my students have set up Instagram practice logs. So in that recording, and then they're putting it out there, they maybe only allow a few people to see it, but then asking for that feedback. So just a couple of things to add to the last session. So thinking about the audition day, obviously you have a logistics plan, you know when you need to be at the audition. So when are you going to wake up? Back that up even further. When are you going to bed the night before? What kind of travel have you had? And how tired are you from that travel? If we're flying airplanes and things, we might be a little dehydrated. So be sure you're getting enough food and you're drinking enough water. And then, you have your wardrobe planned. Something I ran into actually in an interview is my bag didn't make it with my performance clothes, my suit, everything I planned to wear for the interview. So if you're flying for your audition, maybe have a way of taking it on the plane with you, a hanging bag or a rolling suitcase, so that you don't get there and you don't have your clothes. I lucked into a mall and went to the mall and got some things that worked, but it was still not what I was used to for that interview. Everything worked out. It was okay. But so following your logistics plan, when do you wake up? What are you wearing? And then what are you eating before the audition? I know we already mentioned that a little bit, but just being sure that you're going to be fueled. You're going to be a little nervous, and that's okay. And you'll be a little on edge, but it's also an exciting thing. So try to channel that energy. We already mentioned about the order of your music, having that idea in your mind. If they ask you, what would you like to start with? Which every audition, I ask the students, what do you want to start with? And I often get a blank stare. Like, oh, you're not going to tell me what to play. And so already be ready for that the order you want to play things in. Something we mention in the handout is following up with the faculty member. If you perform for several people in your audition, every school does it a little bit differently. But follow up with an email, or if the faculty member follows up with you, respond, please, to the email. Sometimes I'll reach out to students and it's like crickets. And I want to visit with the student and get to know them a little bit better. On this day of the audition, we mentioned again, but be early. There's the musician adage that, early is on time is late. Just in case anything might happen, we want to be sure we're ready for anything that might not go the way we planned. There might be a large warm-up room where you're warming up around a lot of other people. So be ready for that. You might also be assigned a warm-up time and a room. And then also some auditions, there might not be a warm-up room. You might have to just pull it out in the hallway and get ready to go and walk in. So being ready in your preparation, maybe you practice your audition cold with no warm-up. And then maybe in a room with people that are all playing at the same time, you warm up. And then you have that isolated warm-up where your luxury is having a practice room to warm up in prior to that audition. So being ready for any of those scenarios that might happen on the audition day. Remember that when you walk into that audition room, the faculty member hearing you wants to know who you are. They want to get to know you. So be you. Don't try to be somebody else or who you think you need to be. Be you. Always have water with you. Don't be afraid to ask if you can take a sip of water between pieces or before you start. Take your time. Just be comfortable. Know that anywhere you audition, the faculty are looking for potential, and we want to see what you can do. Faculty might ask students to try a few things that might turn into a mini lesson, not just an audition. So, be open-minded, be ready to try some things differently. But remember that we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for potential, and we want to see what you can do. Do introduce yourself, be happy, be confident, be positive. And if you can't, make eye contact with the committee, maybe have questions for the faculty if they haven't been already answered by other things that have happened at the audition day. Oftentimes there are opportunities to talk to students. So use those opportunities, get to know the people at that institution. They will be your colleagues. No matter the major, they're going to be your colleagues in classes and ensembles. And so get to know them, see if you fit in with them and you feel like this is a place you want to call home for 4 years, 2 years, whatever the degree is. So I want to open it up. Anybody else want to chime in on that, the day of the audition?
Yeah, I just wanted to add about the smile thing. When people think they smile because they're happy, but in actuality, when you smile, it makes you happy. You can try it right now. Smile. You suddenly get a feeling throughout your body because it's hormones and stuff rushing through your body because you smiled. So, number one, smile because it makes you happy. It makes you feel good. But the other thing that's even more important when you smile is it makes the people who see your smile happy. And those are the judges. So I know my colleagues here have said we're not looking for perfection, but we actually are. But it doesn't matter because the best way to get to perfection is by not thinking about it, right? If you're up there, if you're on stage saying to yourself, I got to be perfect, I got to be perfect, I guarantee you'll never be perfect. So the best way to get to perfection is to completely disregard that thought and play the way you want to play and smile. And when you do that, you create, the hormones, you create the brain sensation. The people looking at you will smile back. That'll make you feel good. And someone might even say something nice to you if you smile nicely. So I think it's kind of the inner game of tennis thing. Don't worry too much about it. If you've practiced and prepared and you got there on time, you're going to play well. You just need to relax. The other thing you can do that I do before every performance is to relax. The single most important thing is to listen to yourself breathing in and out slowly. It's the sound of breathing slowly. If I go like that sound slowly relaxes you. Conversely, by the way, if you listen to someone going, that makes your heart go faster. So just take 2, 3, 4 deep, slow breaths and listen to yourself breathe, and you'll immediately relax. And then smile, maybe say hi to some people, and play, and forget about everything you've already practiced. It's all water under the bridge at that point. And the unique thing about college auditions is, what is true is we are looking for you to do well at college auditions because we want to see students do well. That's not true, by the way, if you go into the professional world and you take an orchestra audition. When you take an orchestra audition, the only thing people on the committee are thinking is, how quickly can we eliminate this person? We have to listen to 200 people. Let's see what we can mark them out for. But you're not at that point yet. So when you're auditioning for colleges, we want you. So we want you to do well. So smile, be happy, relax, and play.
And maybe I would just riff on that and say we are actually on your side when it's a college audition. Yeah.
Yes. So do people want to ask questions? Do we have time for questions? We have
like 1 minute, and then we're going to jump into the performance anxiety panel. So are there any questions? Please enter those in the chat. Anybody?